tonight we are going to talk about backchatting and the impact that backchatting has and how do we parent it. Now, we've seen the question before. We've had our little tidbits of advice that we give to parents regarding backchatting, and it is not necessarily a very easy thing to handle. We struggle with the idea that kids backchat and how they backchat, and it's one of those things. So in general, and I'm going to start with the statement of I want my kids to backchat, and I'm going to give you reasons why you should too. Backchatting is part of a learning curve. Now, we need our children to backchat because it gives us as parents valuable information in regards to where they are in their thinking, their worldview, and how they see us personally as parents. Before I carry on, you're welcome to drop any comment or question down below. I'm available, so I'm here, so you're welcome to engage. And this is a conversation, so I would love to hear your input. All right. It teaches our kids, backchatting teaches our kids with experiencing attentive listening and how to listen, and it teaches them how to engage with emotive situations as well as instructions and boundaries. So, how does it start? How does backchatting start? Now, it starts at a very young age. We experience it as tantrums, them expressing their emotions, especially when they don't get their way. When they go through the why phase, it kind of never really goes away. It actually ramps up. That is actually part of the human condition, to keep on asking why. You as an adult sit and you look at things and go investigate and ask questions why. And our kids go through that, and the more we engage the why and we actually help them develop that critical thinking skills, the more we will get out of our relationship with our kids as well as out of life. Another thing that will happen is they will question some of the choices that you make. They will question the boundaries that you give them. But when we look at backchatting in its soul and its foundation, it is literally asking for recognition and communication and connection. That is their main focus. So when a child actually pushes back at a boundary, when they cheek back or when they backchat, is they are at that particular point in time voicing the need for connection and recognition, and they are actually asking for a conversation. Yes, their tone of voice isn't that great, and that is some of the things that we deal with and that we grow with. They're also asking about trust. Every time that they push back against the boundary, they're asking you, hey mom, hey dad, are you trusting me enough? Can I trust what you said? Is there any value in it? And we need to understand that backchatting is not challenging our authority or trying to exert control over us as parents. We do feel like them pushing back, that, oh no, they're trying to exert control, they're trying to control, and we need to show them who's boss. But it's not really what they're doing. They're asking you, albeit not in the most nice way, they're asking you for engagement. They're asking questions to try and understand and comprehend the world that they're in. One of the biggest things that you can pick up when we deal with adults, you know which adults was allowed to backchat and which were not. The adult that can ask questions, deal logically with the emotive topic, be able to unwind their emotional response to any pushback or any boundary that they've been given, have probably been allowed to backchat their parents because they were allowed to learn those skills in the backchatting process. So why do our kids backchat? They want to be heard and they want to be understood and taken into consideration, and they want to learn and earn trust in this whole thing. So there is definite benefits for backchatting. I'm just quickly referring to my notes here. All right. So the first benefit that we have as parents is we learn our child's perspective. and where it lies, how they view the world, and understanding their point of view. This places us as the parents in a position to know what and how our kids are thinking and where their reasoning skills are. Have you ever had an opportunity where you actually sit down and ask your child, but why? Just asking them, not an attack, like, why are you saying this? But literally, like, I want to understand what you're thinking. Tell me, why did you climb the stairs? Or why did you get up the chair onto the cupboards where you know you don't belong? And actually listening and hearing what they were reasoning and how they were thinking, you will actually find yourself often surprised at the maturity of their thinking and how they process things, and having that information helps you better engage with a boundary or with information that you need your child to deal with. Having the second thing that adds value to that is having an open discussion about what they think opens up the opportunity to add value and understanding to their thoughts. And for us as parents, it reassess our point of view as well. It creates a relationship of trust, something that parents and children dearly need, especially as they grow up. We need a relationship of trust as our children grow older. When we reach the teenage years, every move our teenagers make is based on a trust relationship. When they leave the home, when they go out with their friends, we trust they're honest with us. But if we've never allowed a conversation, even if it's a contentious one, happening between the two parties, we might end up finding our teenagers in positions where they were not supposed to be, because they sidestepped some of the rules, because we never engaged with them and understood their perspective and spoke, talked it through. And it also teaches them that their voice has value, and that their opinion is valid and respected, but we can add value to that information, give them extra things to consider when they're going through the decision-making tree. The third thing is that humans have an innate desire to be heard and understood. How often have you engaged with someone and you keep on going back to them and say, yeah, but just listen to me, just hear what I want to say? And that is why often, I know, under the age of 7, our kids will anyway come back with, continuously come back, and we're going to have the conversation over and over and over again. But even we as adults, when someone says no and we don't really understand that no or that boundary, we will keep on coming back and say, but I don't feel like you're hearing me. I don't feel like you're listening to what I am saying. And that creates contention, and that creates difficulty. And if we actually sit back and allow them to share with us and say, hey mom, hey dad, this is what's going on, this is what I'm feeling, this is what I'm thinking, it helps us to get that information to be able to build forward and actually pick up where we might have misstepped or misinterpreted information that was given to us by our kids. The fourth thing that it teaches us is it teaches their brains that we can change our opinion without losing our integrity. So very often we feel like if we have to change our mind about something, it reflects on our integrity. And it's because we've never been taught how to change our mind or how to analyze information and shift in opinion due to new information and still keep our integrity intact. So if we have back-chatting conversations, the whole aim is to move back-chatting into an open conversation, then it is much easier to actually build relationships and have relationships where our integrity remains intact even though we keep on growing as human beings. And let's be honest, your thinking when you were 16 years old is vastly different than now that you're 25 or when you're 35 or when you're 45, because you get more information and you learn and you grow. And the same for our kids. By telling our kids that they're not allowed to backchat, not allowed to push back, we are telling them that they're not allowed to grow, and it's much more difficult for them to grow and keep their integrity intact. They actually then start developing the mindset that if I shift in opinion, I'm breaking down my integrity. I'm losing integrity in the whole process. The fifth thing that it teaches them to become adults, to be open and learn and creatively problem solve within personal relationships and work relationships. How often have you found yourself, especially if you've grown up in a home where you couldn't talk back to your parents, that when you disagree with a colleague or someone in a high position of authority, that you struggle and that you're like, I don't know how to negotiate with this person. I don't know how to tell them I disagree. I'll rather sit down, be quiet, and not talk back because I've never learned that skills. You are in the perfect opportunity and position to teach your child how to talk back respectfully to a person in a position of power and still be able to translate and negotiate that relationship into a successful relationship. The sixth thing, it teaches them to be open to different perspectives. If I have to be open to hear what you have to say, you have to be open to hear what I have to say, and it actually opens up the channels of communication. The seventh thing that it teaches kids and teaches us as well is negotiation skills and understanding that in life, relationships is always a two-way street. Any boundary that we put down for our kids is a negotiation. Any boundary that we have in our lives is a negotiation. You still have a choice whether you follow that rules or that boundaries or not. But it's easier to stick with a boundary and rules and regulations if we understand it. We experienced it as adults now during the lockdown. We experienced the struggle of trying to stick to the rules and regulations, especially when those rules and regulations did not make sense. And the moment it didn't make sense to us, we wanted to push back and we complained and we felt certain rules and regulations is unfair because it didn't make sense. It just did not compute for us. Then the eighth thing that it teaches our kids is it teaches them to internalize what's being taught and the ability to police themselves, which develops independence and fosters a mindset of good decision making. So basically that whole thing of why when you go out are you wearing a mask? We don't have police standing on the corners making sure that everybody wears a mask. Why do we wear masks? Because we've got more information that we can work with, and therefore we understand it better, the impact of wearing a mask, and therefore we put on a mask because it just makes sense. So we start policing ourselves, and we want our children to be able to police themselves, but the only way that they'll be capable of policing themselves is if we actually allow them to backchat so that they can get more information and we can actually have these conversations. So there's the benefits. So how do I manage that? How do I parent this? That's why you're here. That's why you're watching. Well, how do we parent this? Okay, so how do we manage it productively? First of all, be sure that you know why you're saying no and placing the boundary. Be sure that it is rational and that because you will have to be able to explain your own thought process to your child. And I know there is a fail-safe. There's a lot of us that falls back on the because I said so comment, but we can't go that route because it doesn't make sense. It actually creates the need for them to want to push back, for them to want to say, well, I don't care for your rules, I don't care for your boundaries, because I said so, it doesn't give me the information I need to be able to work with what you've asked. So understanding why you are saying no or why a boundary is there makes it easier to have these conversations when your child backchats. The second thing, how to manage backchatting productively, is when our children are young, we need to be ready for lots of tears. I know biologically we get panicky. The moment our kids starts pushing back, we get scared, and it makes us like there's this feeling in our hearts, and it's because first of all we're not used to it, and second of all there's a biological primal need for children to be quiet because of back in the day when we lived in the caves. If a child was noisy, the sound of a child crying would actually attract predators, and your primal brain is going, oh no, they need to be quiet. something's going to eat us. And that is why you feel panicky. Even if you go out to the shops without your kids, the moment you hear a child cry or push back, your senses gets alerted, and immediately you're like, oh no, someone needs to get that kid quiet. It's something that you can't help, but you can manage it, and you can control your reaction to that by taking a deep breath and saying, okay, nobody's gonna die, we can handle this. My child is not trying to throw over my authority. They're pushing back because they don't have all the information yet. They need more information. They are emotionally, when they're very young, they're emotionally unregulated. And so they're definitely not guided by rationality. So allowing them to express their anger, to express their frustration, get that emotion, let that emotion pass, and then sit down and have a conversation with them and explaining to them why the boundary is there, why are they not allowed to do a certain thing. Yes, at the end of the day, we are tired. We are currently fatigued with all the stresses that we have. So a child moaning and pushing back can be extremely overwhelming for us. So we need to take breaks. You need to take a deep breath and keep on reminding yourself that nobody is going to die. Just because my child is pushing back and giving me lip or cheeking or back chatting doesn't mean anybody is going to die. It just means my child is unregulated. I'm feeling frustrated because I'm starting to feel unregulated. We both need to take a break, and then we can move over to a conversation. The third thing that we need to remember is it is okay to keep a boundary, and it is okay for our kids to express their anger. When you are angry at someone saying no to you or putting something in place that you are not happy with, you want to vent. You want to get it out of your system. Our kids they're human. They're doing exactly the same. They're just getting it out of their system. Give them the space to do that. They're not being disrespectful to you by being upset. They are not trying to avert your authority. They're not trying to control you. They're expressing their emotions. And the moment you can actually get your mind to separate the idea that a child complaining is a child trying to take control, the moment you can separate those two ideas, you will have more fruitful conversations with your child and be able to actually guide them better, and they will be more receptive of what you have to say, and it's much easier to work through the tantrums, to work through the pushback, to work through that growing process, that learning process, and that coaching process that you're as a parent going through. The fourth thing that you do when you're working through these back chatting is, once our kids have calmed down, then we ask for their input in the situation and help them with the emotive words. You were frustrated that I said you couldn't have a lollipop right before dinner. It is not healthy to have a lollipop right before dinner. I understand that you really would like one. And in our home, that is just not how we do things. And you actually have these conversations and talk. It's not healthy. It's going to spoil your appetite. The lollipops are saved one per day, and you already had one today. Understanding and helping them finding words for their emotions helps de-escalate the situation, and it also helps you to get a better connection with your child while you're having this conversation. If it's an older kid, whether it's a teenager, dude, I would love for you to be able to go out to the movies and go spend time with your friends. Unfortunately, the situation is of such a nature that it is not safe necessarily for you to be out on your own. I don't know these people. If something happens to you, I won't know where to find you. I need more information to be able to say yes, to be able to give permission. We have certain boundaries and we need to stick to it because it's for your safety. And because I love you and want to keep you safe, these are the things, the requirements that needs to be met before I can say yes. And I would love to say yes, so let's find a way to meet the requirements. That is one way that you can actually have these conversations after all the emotions have been processed, worked out, and then we can move forward. The fifth one is for us as parents, and it's usually the difficult part, is to be open for suggestions from there and contributions. A lot of times we say, no, but you can't do this, or no, you can't do that. One of my favorite stories about our youngest is we went out to the park, and it's not so much back chatting, but him, having a conversation. And we were rushing to go to the bathrooms because my brother was with us and he had to go to the bathroom. And our youngest casually asked his uncle whether he has a penis or not. And the immediate reaction would be, oh, you can't ask people that kind of personal question, and, to shut down the conversation. And just stepping in and asking, but why are you asking such a question? He said, oh no, because if he has one, why doesn't he, use the tree like we do? Because they're young, they're small. And it opened up the conversation where I could talk to him and say to him, about your uncle's at an age where he can't do it in public anymore. You're going to reach an age where you have to use the bathroom as well. But our knee-jerk reaction to uncomfortable pushback or uncomfortable questions often leads us to jump to a conclusion and not to be open to our children's input and their understanding of the world. And sometimes they understand the world far better than what we do, and they've probably measured and weighed up things already in their mind, and we need to be open to hear what they were thinking and how they were weighing up all the different options so that we can actually guide them through the problem solving and the critical thinking process instead of just shutting it down and saying no. If you have any questions, you're welcome to comment down below or in the comment group. I would love to hear from you. If you like what I'm saying, if you like this conversation, hit that like button, hit the heart. I would love to interact with you. The sixth thing that we need to understand is when we work with these boundaries, on number 5, as I moved my notes too far. All right. So once we're open for their input, there's 4 things that can happen. The first one is that we go and we have all this new information and we don't really know what to do with it, but we need time to think. So we can tell our kid, okay, that's interesting information. I need time to think. I'll get back to you. The important part is always to get back. A lot of times we as parents kind of hope our kids forget about a thing. In actual fact, they don't forget, but what they realize is if we don't get back to them is that they can't trust us to actually go through a thinking process. So if you tell your child that you're going to think about the information they gave you, think about it, get back to them and have a conversation with the extra information. During that time period, obviously the boundary stays intact. There's no shift or move on the boundary. What you're currently doing is you're in negotiations. The boundary's on the table, it stays where it is until you have come to a conclusion or to a solution. Then you can after you've thought about it, you can get back and say, okay, sorry, the rule is still the rule, we're not going to change that. Or maybe the boundary during the conversation, you realize, oh man, I misinterpreted this whole thing, so you know what, I'm sorry, we can move it, you can go to the movies, I didn't realize this is what's going on, I didn't realize so-and-so's mom or dad was going with you, I'm sorry, I didn't have all the information, thank you for giving me the information. Or after you thought about it, you can go and say, you know what, I still don't feel comfortable, but I have an alternative solution. Or you can just say, you know what, I still don't feel comfortable about it, so let's keep the boundary as is, and they might still be angry. Or with the information that you give, your kid can say, okay, I need time to think, and give them time to think and ask them to come back to you after they thought, and they will. Our kids are tenacious enough, they will come back to you and say, hey mom, I've been thinking about this, or hey dad, I've been thinking about this. This and this and this is a solution that I have for the question you've asked. And then you can take up the conversation from there and move forward. The sixth thing of managing backchatting is if there is a hard and fast boundary that cannot be moved, you keep the boundary while engaging your child, while giving them extra information and managing and helping them process the disappointment of the boundary not moving. The seventh thing is, if the tone of voice in this process, tone of voice in this process that your child is going through is not acceptable and you're not happy about how they spoke to you, allow them to process their emotions. And then once they've calmed down, when everybody is able to have, when you've got control over your emotions, you're capable of speaking kinder and nicer. Once you've gone through that process, then you can say, all right, so let's talk. Let's get this thing sorted. And I am not happy about the tone of voice. I don't appreciate you screaming at me. I understand you disagree with me, but I need you to use a kinder voice or a softer voice. Because when you speak to me in that way, it actually makes me feel attacked, and it makes it very difficult for me to hear what you have to say. And what you have to say is extremely important to me, and I want to hear what you have to say. So I cannot allow you to speak to me in that tone of voice, but I can allow you to speak to me, and I can allow you to challenge me, and I can allow you to say to me you disagree. I just need you to do it in a tone of voice or in a way that encourages conversation instead of just shutting down everything that we're going through. The eighth thing, when we manage it, always be open to discuss the boundary again and again. The younger the child, the more they will actually come back like a passer, and now I can't think of the English word. Basically like a protractor. They will come around and round and round. They will keep coming back to the conversation. It is not because they don't necessarily accept the boundary. It is because their brain is trying to process and trying to understand it. How often have you gone back to information just to make sure, do I understand this correctly? Is this the way that I wanted it to be? And basically going through the motions of trying to understand this whole thing. And then the last part is be honest and be clear. Always make doubly sure that you understand what your child is saying. We often, like I said, jump to conclusions, and very often when we are listening to our children, we listen to react, to show them where they were wrong, instead of really hearing what they're saying. So try and practice, especially in contentious conversations, to sit back and take a step back and say, am I understanding you correctly? You are saying X, Y, Z. Am I understanding this correctly? And then addressing the conversation, because then it also helps you not to attack your child, but to rather work with the content of the information that they're giving you, and you giving them information. Then there is a couple of don'ts with backchatting. Like I said earlier, because I said so, please never say because I said so. It doesn't help. It doesn't move the conversation anywhere. It literally is a power play, and it actually causes more friction and problems within the family unit than when you move forward. Second thing is, never tell the child that their thinking is wrong. They are very much capable of thinking, and they're very capable of thinking things through. They might not have the amount of life skills and information that we have as adults, but they're capable of thinking. So when they say, no, they thought this and that, you can actually comment with the words, I like the way you're thinking. Have you thought about this? And add information instead of just shutting down the thinking process. The third one is never tell a child that their emotions are insignificant. What they're feeling is they're feeling frustrated, they're feeling angry, they're upset. That's what they're feeling. You're allowed to feel what you feel, but you're not allowed to act in a certain way. And so you can always stop the actions, but always encourage them to feel, and always help them find words for the emotions that they're trying to express, whether it's joy, whether it's anger, whether it's sadness. Help them find those emotive words. And it's extremely important for them to be able to have the right words. If you have the right word for the emotion that you're feeling, it is actually easier then to process the emotion and actually get back to rational thought. The fourth one is don't rush to conclusions. It is very easy for us to jump to conclusions and to assume certain things about our kids. It is extremely important not to jump to conclusions, because they have extra information that we need to be able to parent them. The fifth one is don't be afraid to rethink your own perspective. Like I said, with the information, you might change your point of view, and that is okay. It doesn't undermine your authority as a parent at all. It doesn't damage your integrity if you are capable of rethinking your perspective and how you are working things through. And the last one is, if you have misunderstood what your kids said, don't be afraid to apologize. Apologies goes a long way, and we need to learn to apologize to our children when we have been wrong. So in conclusion, backchatting is an early developmental stage of learning how to negotiate and problem solve. The process will only truly work if we as parents are ready to be open for the debate and apply proper communication skills to our kids. Now, I will drop a link to all the information that I shared tonight as well. It's in a blog that I wrote, so it's easily available for you as well. It was amazing chatting with you all. I would love to hear from you as well. Share it with your friends. Comment on it later on. I will keep an eye on the video and actually engage with you if you have any further questions. If you want me to expand on anything that I said tonight, I will do it with gladly and with an open heart. And I look forward to our next parenting live chat. Guys, let me know, what else would you like to talk about? What conversation would you like to have as a parenting conversation? There's